I'm the capacity builder and supporting the ABCD team, providing resources, facilitation guide, hosting conversation circles, hosting a monthly growing our ABCD practice. This month we did an asset map and walk, which was co-hosted by Tyson and myself, and it was a great time. Before we start and before we talk about we dive into reflective practice, I had like a question prompt. What is one symbol that you use to connect with nature? It could be a pet, so you get to walk in the park, and what like are you able to share that with us when you're talking about you introduce yourself, your pronouns, where you work, and then what is that one symbol that connects you to nature? I don't have a pet. I like to walk and people watch. I don't know, like I just sit and just watch people go about their days. I used to do it with my grandma growing up. So it's a good thing to help me connect to nature.
I can go if you'd like. I know the awkward silence. So my name's Jody Forbes. My pronouns are she, her. And I do have a small Labradoodle puppy that likes to go for walks. So we're fortunate we live right near Fish Creek Park. So we often go take him through the pathways in Fish Creek for daily walks. So very fortunate. And I guess I forgot, I work for the city of Calgary, and I am one of the project coordinators for building connected communities alongside Courtney Rivas. So I am, a community social worker. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Jody. And I see a few people are sharing in the chat. Michelle talked about going for daily walks and watching the sunrise as it changes throughout the year. That's actually beautiful. Amy shared about water and focusing on the sound of nature. Oh, I like that. Anybody else want to share? Feel free to either unmute or post it in the chat.
I can go next. I have a cat, and I've been leash training her, and she loves going outside. She just sort of like rolls around in the concrete. And so she just like walks through the grass. She does her little patrol through the backyard. So I really enjoy doing that, and I get to listen to the birds while we're outside together and try not to let her attack any of the birds because she'd try.
I can go next. Gabby, your cat is so cute. Thank you for introducing her to us. My name's Abby. I work at the Bowness Community Association as part of the Community Hubs Initiative. And so I also work closely with the City of Calgary social worker, Clara Ewan. And one thing, it's like not quite the same as a pet, but what came to mind when you asked that question is I love the time of the year when the lilacs are blooming, which is kind of, we're just at the tail end of it now. And I feel like that's something, and kind of like different flowers through the summer, where if I know that there's something that's only around for a little while, I like make a point to go out and see it as much as I can. And that's kind of fun, like, because it's not there all the time. I feel like I really make a point to go out and see it.
Thanks for sharing, Abby. Anybody else wants to share? I know a few people have shared in the chat. Amy also talked about no, Sue talked about growing things. Magdalena talked about walking, gardening, music, and dance, and that's super cool. And I there is a lot of like things that are intersecting. We talk about planting, taking our pets out, walking, and all that. I just wanted to hone in on that even though we are different people, there are certain things that would connect us at the end of the day, which is either planting, gardening, certain hobbies that are common to all of us, and that's something that I would like to hone in on before we start our session. If you see me looking to the side, I have my notes, so pardon me. I don't know how many of you went to the leadership conversation or sorry to solidarity conversation. So our goal today is to dedicate time for reflection and sense. Making of what folks have engaged with and learning in our sessions. So we'll spend maybe the first 10, 15 minutes to talk about the first two sessions, which is the leadership conversation and solidarity. Let's reflect on it. I made a few notes, but I'll leave everybody to start and sort of share what they experienced with that session, how they resonated to that, and then what are they taking away from those two sessions. So if you unmute and you're sharing, please let me know which session you went to and then what you got out of that session.
I can introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Bray. I use she, her, they, them pronouns interchangeably. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Better Belonging, where we support workplaces and communities to address their community culture or their workplace culture. I have a dog. She's a little camera shy. Her name is Ellie. She's a Aussie Shepherd Blue Heeler. So I love to take her out when there's no bikes around. So usually waiting till the very last opportunity to get a little bit of light. And that's really what connects me to outside is golden hour. Like just as it's getting dark, where the sky here in Calgary is just so stunning. I'm sure most of us have our phones filled with like different colorful photos. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I'll go next, if that's okay. So I'm Rebecca. I'm with Center Latino. I have a couple of hats. I'm also with Immigrant Services Calgary. And what do I love going for walks also. I have a large standard poodle. Her name is Lexi. So we go for walks around the neighborhood. I like exploring different pathways. I went with my mother-in-law in Tuscany a couple of days ago, and just wonderful pathways there, and just you feel you're in the forest. It was just so nice. And the birds, I do have a low-key obsession with birds. I'm kind of a bird watcher. I think I'm gonna be an official bird watcher when I retire. But I did get attacked though by a bird at the walk, so very protective time for some of the birds. It was in one of the marshes there, and there's like black. I don't know if you guys seen the black ones with the red shoulder. I think it was the female one. I went too close to the marshes. She did not like that. So, but it was good. She reminded me of where I was in her land. So,
Thanks for sharing, Rebecca. And the fun fact I learned is that they're sometimes protecting their unborn eggs, so that's why they're very authoritative and they're territorial as well. Go ahead, Sue.
What connects me to things is like as soon as the weather starts to change after the winter and the light changes and stuff, I get like this like itch in my fingers to get into the dirt. And I love to grow all sorts of things. Calgary is like growing things in Calgary is kind of an extreme sport, so that's my version of like, I don't know, the Red Bull Games or something like that. And so when you have a success, like my potatoes are sprouting right now, and it's like it like makes you want to like dance outside as you watch them get bigger and do their thing and know that there's like amazing things happening under that dirt.
Thanks for sharing, Sue. Yeah, I miss doing those things with my dad. He and I used to plant and garden at home. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Amy, and I'm also wearing a couple of hats today. I am the president of the Permaculture Calgary Guild, and I also run a small business called Up Earth Pathways, where I help eco-conscious businesses with grant writing and securing funding. So I've talked a little bit about what connects me, but maybe I'll talk a little bit more to this season. I'm in a brand new space, moved in with my partner over the winter, and he has a very large yard, but it was all grass. But he is very on board with growing as well. It's something that I'm very passionate about too. And we have torn out half the lawn. We've put in a bunch of garden beds. We've put in rainwater harvesting. And we've even applied for chickens with the city of Calgary, and we just got approved. So we're creating our own little ecosystem in the yard. So I'm super excited for that.
For sharing, Amy. Another fun fact, I like chickens. I'm scared of them, but we used to have chickens to like raise and eat. And after we spent like maybe a month or two with the chickens, we named them and we never ate them. So we would give you an official full name. I remember my chicken's name and all of that. So we never ate them. We made them have as many chicks as possible because we all grew attached in the house. So I don't know how you're gonna do it, but I can't raise chickens. I'll raise them as pets.
They're only for eggs, so we don't have to eat. We're not going to be eating them anyway. They'll be egg chickens.
I don't know if everyone has gone. If not, please share in the chat or feel free to unmute. But I'm gonna go ahead with the next session. So we're going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes kind of like reflecting on the first two sessions. Then we'll talk about our experience as people working in community. Then we'll have a conversation amongst ourselves about like how your community development work has looked like since you began. You're sharing your successes, your tips, and what has helped you navigate your work. Because I know we all wear different hats in the work that we do. So with the first session I attended, I had a question prompt. What was your experience with the Sorrow to Solidarity conversation? Any similar experience you want to share if related to it, like on climate and how you've navigated everything that's happening in the natural or man-made? How has that made you feel? I think she shared a wellness map. How did you resonate with that? Is that something going forward? You pick some of the tips and tricks on the map that you'll be utilizing in your work. With the leadership conversation, I have a question prompt for that as well. So in communities, oftentimes there are conversations amongst leadership. How do we ensure that grassroots voices are represented in these conversations? I just want to know, as you're working in community, how you ensure that everybody is part of these conversations. So bearing in mind, I didn't go for the leadership session. So if I'm wrong with my wording, please correct me as well. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Would it be possible to enter those questions in the chat? Just helps with processing.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to copy and paste it later.
Thanks so much.
I think when I went to the ecological grief one. I think something I reflected a lot on thinking about like ecological grief and just like processing the conversations and the things that people were bringing up. I think something that the way that I feel like ecological grief and like feel sorrow in that way is sort of how ecological grief and like other things like that generally go straight into sort of like misanthropic and like other human hating attitudes, which is something that always like brings me a lot of sorrow because I think like humanity's effect on nature and how we interact with nature isn't necessarily destructive. Like all life on Earth interacts with nature in some way. And um, I think a lot of people think like historically humans have always had this like terrible effect on Earth, on the environment, but we're a part of the environment. And that's just something I always really think about. And that I try to consider in having conversations like that and how I interact with the environment. Something a professor said to me one time, it was like in a sort of like an environment focused class. He always really resented that sort of position of leave no trace when you go on a hike or you go in nature, because well, it's first of all, it's like completely unachievable. And it's not the way he put it, it wasn't necessarily you should leave no trace, but it's sort of um it was like he put it in a different way. I don't exactly, this was a few years ago. I don't remember exactly what he meant, but it just like stuck with me that it's not necessarily leave no trace, but it's sort of like don't be destructive rather than leave no trace. It was something like that. But yeah, that was yeah.
There is also a saying that take some and leave some, like something like take something, but also leave something to show that you were here. I think that's something that is also important, but do not leave things that would take million years to decompose, but something to show that indeed you were there, and also be mindful of that as well. And thank you for pointing that out, because there's been a lot of discussions around humans should go extinct because it will help the environmental climate. And I think the other time we're having a conversation, somebody pointed that we are needed for the ecosystem. It's imperative that we are part of the ecosystem, because if we are not part of the ecosystem, the environment also will not survive. So thank you for pointing that out.
I could go. So, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself last time because I just got excited thinking about the potatoes that are growing. My name is Sue. I she, her, and I endeavor to do community development with people with intellectual disabilities, outside of sort of the standard practices that typically support people with intellectual disabilities. And I was in the leadership conversation. And in regards to the question about how are the grassroots voices represented, so I think what I've learned and what I strive to remember all the time is to center the person that we are working on behalf of and working alongside with, and not just in terms of what do you want, what do you want to do, but also recognizing that sometimes people who are marginalized have impoverished experiences. They haven't had the opportunity to, you know, learn and know about what opportunities should be available to them. So I try and center the idea of people having all those opportunities that everybody else gets, and that's how our I think for our organization, leadership is more about lifting up than pulling along.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sue. And I like the lifting up rather than pulling down. And I think it's very, very important. I did a lot of some of my studies back home on disability studies as well. And I found something yesterday which I thought was interesting. There is a shop, I don't know if it's in Japan. Yes, Japan, where they created a little coffee shop for adults with dementia. So they are the servers there, and you get whatever you get. And the idea is to show that they are also people, and they love the place and they go there. And the central idea of opportunities, I think, is very, very important, because sometimes people with intellectual disabilities or even disabilities in general have had limited opportunities being presented to them. They do not know that there's a world or area of opportunities for them. And somebody who did a lot of information dissemination on disability and supports that are available for them. Thank you so much for sharing. So, anybody else?
I think also when it comes to grassroots, like I meet so many people who are doing community development, but maybe haven't heard the phrase community development before. And I certainly hadn't until I started working at the BCA. But even we had a Chalk the Block event a couple of weeks ago for Pride Month. And there was one mom who came and she had invited all of these other young families that live on her street, and she brought her toddlers with her. And then I was explaining kind of what we do at the BCA. And at the end, I was like, why don't you take this chalk with you? And then the kids who live on your street can all use it together, and that's community development. And she was like, oh, I guess that is community development. I've never thought about it that way. So I think just there's probably a lot going on out there already, and calling it out when you see it, I think sometimes can be helpful, because then people are like, oh yeah, I am doing something cool here.
That's a thing that brings legitimacy to the work that you do as well. It also helps people be able to apply for funding when need be, because if they know that this is what they're doing, because sometimes people don't know, like the lady that you talked about, she doesn't know that, oh, these opportunities have been presented to her because this is the work that she's doing. I think it brings legitimacy. It also encourages people to keep going if we're able to recognize the work that they're doing. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I think kind of furthering what Abby was saying, there is really one thing that I've noticed, and one thing that I've kind of become more passionate about, isn't just about lifting up and elevating the things that I feel are important to my physical organization. It's about connecting with other like-minded and like-hearted organizations who are doing really great things and helping to elevate those around us. So I think the way I was in the second leadership session, and I think that by elevating others, you also elevate yourself, and it elevates as a whole. We move that needle a lot more if we can collaborate and help each other, versus getting into that mindset of competition and needing to feeling like there's a scarcity of resources, or there's a scarcity of anything, that if I help this person, that's going to take away from me. And I think that's a very archaic way of potentially looking at things, and it's not really our way inherently. And I think it goes back a little bit to what Gabby was saying, that's not the way nature works, and it's really not the way that we work either. So I think that's how we help to kind of elevate and make sure that the conversations within the grassroots level are being heard, and it's to help each other and elevate each other through that process.
That is so true. But one of the things I've also realized with my experiences, because of the way our institutions have been set up, we are competing for resources as community organizations and people advocate and everything. We are competing for the resources. It's been structured like that. You have to apply for funding. It's the person that writes the most beautiful application that gets the funding. So it kind of becomes competitive, even though you do not want it to be competitive. But moving from that mindset and working towards collaboration is also very, very important as well. Thank you for pointing that out. Anyone else wants to share? If not, I'm going to go to the next session because I'm very excited about it. I'm going to talk about community development in general because everybody has talked about the different hats that they wear and everything. But if you want to talk, please feel free to unmute and just talk. I'm going to talk about how has your community development work looked like since you began, or as people working in community, like how has it been, like the people you've interacted with, the organizations that you've worked or collaborated with, places you've volunteered at, events you've put up, things you've hosted. I want to hear about it. Talk to me about it. I want to learn. I want to know. It helps me also get to understand what is going on in our communities as well and get to reflect on how important it is for us to be in community. Also, when you're sharing, share with us some challenges, some successes, some tips and tricks that have helped, resources, how you're navigating everything. And I'm going to post the question in the chat. And maybe why you also wanted to get into community development. Like if you have any story you want to share as well.
I think I have something to share. It's not necessarily related to the work that I'm doing now, but when I was in university, I was like really focused on trying to like curate like a physical space for like students in my department. And I think a lot of the difficulty came from a lot of people wanted the space and they would utilize the space, but I think when it would come to like trying to organize things, there was a lot of hesitation and a lot of people saying, well, I don't want to be on campus for that long, or I can't help because of this or that, or I don't really want to help for whatever reason. And I think just like getting attention was always like a really difficult thing. And another thing I found really difficult was being able to be taken seriously by the faculty members, like our professors and stuff, because they didn't want to do anything they didn't necessarily have to do. Like they didn't want to, if they didn't have to interact with some students, they didn't really want to, which I was really shocked by because, but I know there's like this whole overworking issue, which I know it's really, it's an issue like in like all sectors, where there's like downsizing and then more burdens are placed on more people. And I think that's always so difficult to navigate. And obviously, if anybody has any suggestions for that, I'm totally willing to hear them. And I feel like they didn't really take me seriously until like right before I graduated, because at that point they're like, "Oh, you actually do know what you're talking about. You've been like working really hard on this for like 2 years." And it's like, yeah, but it's you guys noticed a little bit too late because I'm gone now. So it's just, I think stuff like that, just like not being taken serious, community development generally, just not being taken seriously, is really hard because they complain about it and then they don't, I guess, put the effort into helping the people who do want to actually do something about it. So if anybody has any suggestions for that, I would love to hear things.
I think there's there's a blend of a lot of things going on here. I attended the ecological grief session earlier, and something that isn't talked about as much, but we are starting to to become more aware, is also the effects of the pandemic, right? Where we were forced into isolation, where we were craving connection, but then what happened is we became safe or comfortable with said isolation, but yet we're still craving that connection. And so it's like really navigating that conversation of, well, my home is safe, my like my bubble is where I want to be, and I want to connect with people, right? And it's really building that back up again, because we've built a disconnect. And what I found just in regards to community development work is really doing those personal invites. If you're organizing a day, for example. So kind of like what Abby said too, where like you went to the person and directly told them what they're doing, like having that actual like recognition. So like seeing Gabby, like with your experience, being able to be like, hey Gabby, you've done really great work from day one, versus waiting until the end and really naming the people. That's been a huge thing for me too when it comes to going up to different places where I'm like, I'm not sure if this is really where I belong or where this is going to be my place. I've showed up because of a personal invite, because somebody's been like, hey, Jenna, come on down to this event. I'm like, okay, right? Versus when I see the big announcement or that group, like social media message where it's like, yeah, maybe not. Or we become a bit more of those bystanders of just like, okay, somebody else will do it, right? Where if you get that personal connection. So it's looking at your community and actually building upon the community that you have, which then will trickle out.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Jenna. And Gabby, I'm so sorry you had that experience. You kind of broke my heart as you were talking, because I know when I was reflecting on the question, one of the things that came to my mind is I've been at this a long time. I'd like to think of myself as seasoned, maybe not old, but I've been doing community development with the city for over 2 decades. So a very long time. But one of the things that came to my mind on how I've been able to grow and adapt and is continually learning and learning from workshops like this and learning from, coworkers who maybe just graduated university or students that are working with me or, youth with some of our youth programs. Like they have so much to offer and so many perspectives that are so valuable. And I think that's probably one of the best tricks that I've learned along the way, is just having that open mind to be continually learning, and then also being willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and going in those uncomfortable areas that that push you and push you to develop other aspects of your beliefs and your values and all of those things. Like for me, being a part of building connected communities, and being a part of something like that this late in my career, it's been a great transition for me to start really focusing on assets in the community and being very intentional about our inclusion and very intentional about wanting to ensure that all voices are heard in the community. And where in past years we were so deficit focused, especially like Jenna was saying during the pandemic, it took us all in these places where we were focusing on what we were missing. And we weren't looking at sort of those asset-based approaches, and kind of now needing to reframe since going through that collective trauma of the pandemic, and really just needing to, examine how we're viewing community and then how we're working with community and talking and learning. So yeah, Gabby, I'm sorry you had that experience. If you ever want to come and, chat with other seasoned social workers who would value learning from you, I'd be happy to connect anytime.
I can share too. So recently, it was a few weeks ago, actually it was the last weekend of May, we hosted with Central a Latin American community fair, and just thinking about all the different assets that we kind of identified and mobilized. Like I had to like sit back afterwards and think about, wow, like we found an agency that provided the space, and we're really open to being open to the community. So it's at the Salvation Army Community Resource Center in the Southeast. We found funding opportunities. So Action Dignity really collaborated with us, and we were able to have a small grant for some of the costs and to be able to give honorariums and have some food for the volunteers. We had about 20 volunteers that came out and wanted to help. So that was amazing. And we ended up having about 500 people that came and connected with resources and just like enjoy the cultural celebration. The dances were just so beautiful, colorful. The food bank gave us a food grant as well. So we were able to give people some food, to some groceries and fresh food and canned food to take home. At Community Connector, that was like such a great opportunity for her to have kind of more meaningful conversations. We did not want to give her any tasks other than just be there to connect and talk to people. And then Trellis was one of the agencies there too. They kind of like at the end, they wanted to see if we wanted to do surveys, and they had prizes too. And so one of the, like, I love reading the feedback from some of the attendees. And one of the comments was, "Thank you for doing this event. This is how we connect with each other. It feels like we are with family, and I hope these events always continue. Our family came out because we really needed this." So that's kind of, I don't know, for me, that's the ideal feel-good moment, that we all collaborated and there were so many different elements that came together, and it was such a good outcome for the community to just connect with each other, and also a good space for new entrepreneurs. We had some businesses that came too, and so I wish you would have all been there. It was so good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Jody, for sharing. As you're talking about it, I've been reading on for the next session of Growing Our ABCD, and one of the things that I was looking at was the 4 elements of asset-based community development, and it talks about resources. The resources are exchange of gifts, exchange of stories, all of these things coming together to talk about tangible resources, intangible ones. And thank you so much for sharing, because I was picking so many things from the story that you're sharing. Even the story in itself is a resource and it's an asset to us. Because if sometimes I meet somebody from Latin America looking for a space to connect with, I'm able to connect to Central Latin. So I'm picking up a lot, and I'm making notes, and I'm excited. So thank you for sharing that as well. Anyone else wants to share?
I think one thing that I've been thinking about with community development recently is, like, coming from a programming background, I feel like I got a little bit trained to be like, the more people come to a program, the better the program was. Or like when, like there are different funding requirements where you have to track attendance and stuff like that. But sometimes you have like 2 people show up to a program and you make an amazing connection, and you get the chance to like really talk to them and like get to know them and learn about like other interesting stuff. And so, or like even I had a workshop, a friendship bracelet making workshop a couple weeks ago, and there was a person who didn't come to the workshop, but then later reached out and was like, "I saw that you guys did a friendship bracelet workshop. Like, I would love to lead a friendship bracelet workshop. Is that something I could do?" And so just, yeah, I've been trying to move away from the idea that like, there's like a score that it gets, and the score is the number of people who came, and that means it was.
That's so true. And like I stated earlier, working in a capitalist system also doesn't allow us to ensure quality over quantity. Sometimes we have to meet funding demands. But it's also one of the things I've also always thought about is, how do we make them understand? Because sometimes people who are funding projects are not using a community lens. They do not understand that it doesn't matter if 2 or 3 people show up. It's about the quality of this is one person. There's a saying that says, if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. This person's going to take it out there and going to educate other people. That's how we see. That's the lives that we are touching. But it's not seen that way. So how many people are showing up? How does that impact? How much are you spending? And it's something that is always like a little bit, I'm going to say, triggering for me, because sometimes you want to make an impact, but you have to meet a target. Like you have to meet 10 or 20 people. And I'm like, if 5 people show up, these are people that are willing. How do we take these people and make something good out of them? Something also I've also been reflecting.
Sorry, Jenna, go ahead.
I was just gonna really quick comment. My background is in nonprofit and So 15 years of doing that work and having to meet the deliverables. And yeah, the amount of things that had to be canceled because of lower attendance, which always broke my heart because that was those 5 people that were actually really keen on being there. Particularly, I have a mental health background, suicide prevention. So when I saw those 5 people, I'm like, no, we can't cancel on them for exactly these reasons. But I digress.
Yeah, I deal with a lot of that with the Permaculture Calgary Guild. Like I recently, over the last 3 weeks, we've been hosting a transformation of the backyard, and we've invited people in to come and learn how to do the things because a lot of people are like, I'm really interested in it, but I don't know how to do things. So I've had a couple of experiences so far with people that have come where I've only got like 2 or 3 people that have shown up, and I'm like, okay, but more hands are more hands, so it's valuable regardless. And the interactions have been really like it reminded me very much of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, just an example, there was one young woman who came and she had a background in biology. She was very interested in ecology, but we were transplanting some perennials that were in the garden bed so that we could rehome them later. And she hadn't had the chance or the opportunity ever before to actually pull a plant out of the ground and put it into a pot or to know how to do that. And just that simple experience of being able to harvest a plant from one place in the soil and put it into a pot to know that it's going to live somewhere else again was so powerful for her. She ended up saying, hey, would you mind if I brought my younger cousin tomorrow and we did a little bit more? And it's just like, that is what it is about. Like being able to be like, and she brought her younger cousin who was like maybe 10 or 12 years old the next day. And they came and they spent a couple hours in the garden just pulling out more plants and took some home with them. Because I'm like, we have plenty. Like you take what you want. And they were just so blown away by that and being able to just take plants and experience what it's like to have something from the earth and keep it alive. So yeah, and I've had a few experiences like that so far with just doing this yard transformation. And we did a Shoshugiban demonstration on the weekend. We were doing the wood burning to build our garden beds, and everybody got to try the torch. And like, how often do you get to go somewhere and burn stuff on purpose? And it's for a purpose. So yeah, it's just like focusing on those pieces really, for me, has kind of reminded me of the value that really the simple things have when we're doing community building. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm going to put in the chat a link for everybody what the area of expertise, what you're doing, everything you've shared. Please put that in that link and in the chat in that link. I'm trying to share my computer. Yes, please. All the amazing things that your community offers, please put it in there. We'll be sharing it with the broader CDLI team. So let us know if you don't want it to be shared publicly, how you want these information to be disseminated as well. If you don't know, I'm a certified yapper, so I have tried to hold myself from not talking too much. So, and I'm so grateful for people for sharing, because if not, I would yap throughout. So if you have anything more, please go ahead to share. Yeah.
I think I was thinking about as Amy was talking. So I'm part of a community garden group that you sort of, I mean, it was originally started as a safe space for queer youth, but then it had morphed into uh, a bunch of other things. And it's because the people that showed up were able to, they had a safe place, but they were able to sort of express the things that they needed and what they were missing. And that allowed us to build other things. So, I mean, quite often queer youth have experienced some rejection or distanciation from their families, and they don't often know how to cook. So over the winter, we did cooking classes, like really basic. Here's like highly nutritious, high protein, easy to make. Here's how you chop things. Here's how you clean particular vegetables, like all that sort of stuff, just in a really community enhancing way. And I love that the sort of the brilliance of the things that link together, right? Because nobody has just one need, and no group can offer just one thing.
And that is the beauty of community. Things are born out of things. Like it evolves. Like it started as a community guide, and you can even become like a social group, a place for emotional support, a safe space for friendship, companionship can go. People can find their life partners. It's such a great and amazing experience. And I'm always grateful for that, for being privileged to be in that space as well. Yeah.
Well, I do want to be mindful of time. I think we will likely be asked to leave in a couple minutes. So if there's any other comments, suggestions, ideas, difficulties that you'd like to share, I think Victoria and I can open the space for that again now. And if not, thank you, Victoria, for leading this. And I tried my best to take notes throughout of everything everyone was saying, but like Victoria had mentioned, please go through those Google slides and add more thoughts and suggestions. It was so informative, and I love just hearing about like similar difficulties and all of the similarities that came out from this, like the lack of capacity, disconnection, always assuming we know what community wants or what we think community needs, and instead like building those relationships and connecting with people in like intentional, purposeful ways. There was so much constant learnings, doing workshops such as this, and just connecting and chatting with people. So thank you again very much. And yeah, I'll just open the floor to any last minute thoughts.
I want to share, and I just wanted to say this, that my community work was born out of a necessity by watching my parents turn into advocates due to something that happened while I was young. My brother got hit by a car, so he unfortunately lost his life, and my parents became advocates. They became road safety advocates, and they turned it into becoming facilitators, because my parents were both teachers, like science and math quiz, providing STEM for girls, providing so many resources, and being facilitators for different variety of exciting, creating a community library. And it was so exciting to see them do these things aside from their 9-to-5 jobs. And even though I wanted to go into law, when I got into social work, I was very, very excited, and I delved more and learned more about social work. And I was like, oh, that is a very, very, very interesting field, and I'd like to get into it. But doing clinical aspect of social work was something I knew I never wanted to do, because I had a bit of experience and it was a little for me. Getting into community, I knew this was the right place to be. Getting to connect with people, pointing people to resources, having people gather is something that I'm always grateful for, because it gives me a fulfillment that I don't think people understand. I'm always happy to see that if you did do a project and the community themselves take it over, and how they're able to transform that project or turn it into something that you didn't even think about, how they even become advocates for themselves because you brought them something that they've been able to work on and become part of that. So thank you all for sharing. And if anybody wants to unmute and share, please share. My challenge has been people, because sometimes people are diverse and it comes with its own struggles. It comes with its own successes as well. So it's a complex relationship, and as I'm growing,